today we're diving into PlotRocket, and this software wants to be every writer's new best friend, especially if you're tackling those massive multi-season stories.
You know what's interesting about PlotRocket? It's not like they're trying to reinvent the wheel or anything.
Right.
It's built on how those professional writers' rooms actually work, just, bringing it all into the digital world.
Thank goodness it's not about replacing creativity. So how does it actually work? They've got this whole system, story elements, they call it. What's the deal with that?
Okay, so think of it like building a house, okay? You got to have that foundation. With PlotRocket, your foundation, that's the series. Then you figure out your precinct.
Yeah.
That's like, think of it as the neighborhood for your story.
Okay.
What's the vibe? Is it all fantasy land, or are we in a modern city? That's your precinct.
Got it. So that's setting the scene. Then what?
Then comes the fun stuff. Characters, settings, and this thing PlotRocket calls lore. It's all the little details, right? The things that make your world feel real. And get this, PlotRocket's like, hey, treat each element like it's on a note card. Just like, old school writer's rooms.
I see.
Jot down the key info. You can move these elements around, make connections, and really see how everything fits.
So like index cards, but way less of a mess to deal with.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned seeing how everything fits together. PlotRocket's got some visual tools for that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. They've got these different views to help you see your story, literally. First up is the tile view. Think like a virtual corkboard. You create these digital note cards, for your characters, settings, the lore, all of it. You can drag, you can drop, group them, and really map out how they all connect.
Okay. That's good for me. I'm very visual. But what about those big storylines, the ones that go on for multiple episodes, whole seasons even? How does PlotRocket handle that?
That's where the graph view comes in. So picture, imagine like a timeline, but you're charting the emotional ups and downs of your whole story.
Oh, interesting.
These are your arcs. PlotRocket lets you actually visualize how those arcs go up, go down, giving your story that satisfying shape,
Okay, so we've got the world, the characters, the big arcs, but what about breaking down each episode? That's where things get really, really messy for me.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
But PlotRocket, they've got a system, of course. Story breaking, they call it. It helps you go from the big picture all the way down to every single scene. You break the seasons into episodes, then inside each episode, you map out your plot lines.
Okay.
Think of them like your A, B, and C stories. Each one's got its own little mini arc going on.
So you're weaving all these different storylines together to make the episode?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And get this, PlotRocket gives you a visual way to manage all that weaving with, they call it the blend view. You can actually see how those scenes and the plot lines they're pushing forward all fit into the episode's flow. It's like mission control for how your episode is structured.
This is giving me flashbacks to my old wall of note cards, but in a good way. Now, one thing that's got everyone talking is PlotRocket using AI.
Yeah, AI is a big deal for writers these days, and PlotRocket, they're not shying away from it. They offer plans with AI help and plans without.
Okay, so for someone who's, curious about what AI can do, what can they expect from PlotRocket?
Well, it's not like, going to spit out a whole script for you or anything. It's
Right.
more like, think of it as a thought partner,
Okay.
Like, say you're stuck on what makes your character tick or you need a fresh take for a scene. You can actually bounce ideas off the AI. It'll give you suggestions, different ways to approach it.
So it's like having a brainstorming buddy who doesn't eat all your snacks. I like the sound of that. But okay, let's say we've got all these great ideas brewing in PlotRocket. How do we actually, get them out there onto the page? Can it help with building a series Bible or actually outlining the episodes?
Oh, absolutely. As you're building your story in PlotRocket, it's actually creating those documents for you, like in the background.
No more lost note cards?
Exactly.
That's a relief.
Uh-huh.
So tell me more about this series Bible, because honestly, it sounds kind of intimidating.
It doesn't have to be, I promise. PlotRocket, it treats the series Bible as a living document, something that, grows with your story.
Okay.
Is where you put down those big picture things like the rules of your world, character backstories, any recurring themes that give it depth.
So it's not just about what happens. It's about making a world that actually feels, believable, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
PlotRocket gets that a good story is more than just a bunch of stuff happening. It's about making a world that feels real with characters that have, some depth to them.
Right, right. Now let's talk about those individual moments, the beats within a story that keep people on the edge of their seats. How does PlotRocket handle that?
Oh, those beats. Those are the heart of it all. And PlotRocket gives you a few ways to work with them. Remember how we talked about arcs, like the emotional journey a character goes through?
Yeah.
Well, each arc is basically a bunch of beats strung together.
Okay.
PlotRocket lets you define those beats, put them on a timeline for the arc, even give them, like, an emotional value.
Emotional value, huh? That's interesting.
Right. So think about it like this. Imagine you're mapping out that classic hero's journey, right? You've got your hero all hopeful at the start, and then bam, tragedy strikes, their world's flipped upside down. PlotRocket lets you actually plot those emotional highs and lows right there on the arc, so you get this clear picture of how their journey is playing out.
So you're basically making a map of the story's emotions, all the peaks and valleys.
Exactly. And by giving each beat that emotional value, you can make sure your story's got that rhythm, those moments of tension and release that just pull people in.
It's like writing a symphony, but with emotions instead of notes.
I like that.
Does this work for subplots, too? You know those B and C stories running alongside the main plot?
Oh, for sure. You can use those emotional beats to map out how those subplots are doing, too. Let's say you've got, I don't know, a romance brewing in the background.
Okay.
You can use those beats to create that slow burn, the buildup of tension, the longing.
So by being smart about where you put those emotional beats across all the different storylines, you're creating something that's way more, like, layered for the audience.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And what's cool is PlotRocket doesn't just look at the emotional arc of one character or even just one plot line. It helps you see how those beats work together across the whole episode.
So it's like you're conducting this orchestra of emotion, making sure everything's working together.
Exactly.
To make this even clearer, let's talk about a specific example. PlotRocket uses the show Friends as a case study, don't they? What can we learn from how they break that down?
Yeah, they actually took apart the pilot episode of Friends.
Yeah.
Like dissecting it into all those core story elements.
Okay.
First, they figured out the precinct in New York City in the 90s, obviously.
Yeah.
Then they mapped out the main characters and how they're all connected, the whole web.
Which is where those lore elements come in, right? The
Yeah.
details that flesh out those relationships.
Exactly. For example, they highlighted the whole Ross and Rachel thing, which, let's be honest, became a huge part of the entire series.
Right.
They mapped that out as a bunch of arcs, tracking all those ups and downs, the breakups, the makeups.
Okay, so they've got the world, they've got the characters, those big overarching arcs. But what about the actual episode, the pilot? How'd they break that down?
Oh, they got into the nitty-gritty. They found the pilot's 3 main plot lines: Rachel ditching Barry at the altar, Monica dealing with Paul, the wine guy, and of course, Ross, all hung up on Rachel.
It's all coming back to me now.
Right. And then they broke down each of those plot lines into its individual beats, those key moments that push the story forward.
And then they put those beats on, like, a timeline for the episode's structure, right? Because even a 22-minute sitcom has to have a rhythm, something to keep people hooked.
You got it. What's really interesting is how they sprinkle those beats throughout, how different plot lines take center stage at different times. It's like a masterclass in creating a balanced episode that just works. Each plot line gets its moment, but it always comes back to those characters we love and how their lives are all tangled up.
It's like PlotRocket is giving us a backstage pass to the writer's room, showing us how they did it.
That's exactly it. By picking apart successful stories like this, you start to see those patterns, those techniques that keep people coming back for more. It's about understanding the why behind the what, which can be super valuable for your own writing.
It really makes you appreciate all the thought that goes into it, even for something that seems, light and fun, like a sitcom.
Right.
So for our listeners out there who are thinking, PlotRocket, this sounds awesome, but is it right for me? What would you tell them?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? PlotRocket's a powerful tool, there's no doubt about that. It can help you wrangle your ideas, bring some structure to how you write, even make you a better storyteller overall. But it's not like a magic wand or anything.
It's not going to write your script for you.
Exactly. PlotRocket, it's for writers, real writers,
Yeah.
who love what they do and want to learn and experiment.
Got it.
It's about, actually putting in the work, using the software as a way to get those ideas into shape.
So basically, if you're ready to dig in and get your hands dirty with your writing process, PlotRocket could be a total game changer.
It's like you're seeing your story through a whole new lens.
Yeah.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. Before we go, I want to leave everyone with this thought. Think of a story, something that's really stuck with you. Now imagine, using PlotRocket to take it apart, to see all those emotional beats and plot lines and how they work together. Could that unlock something new in your own writing?
That's what's so great about stories.
Right.
There's always something new to find, whether you're the one writing it or the one listening.
And PlotRocket just might be the key to those discoveries. Until next time, happy writing, everyone!